Are you a fan of Bram Stoker's classic novel Dracula? Well, if so, then you may be interested in today's Thriller Thursday, in which we talk about a novel that's kind of a sequel to Dracula. So stick around to see what it's all about. Well, hey friends, Roger here, and welcome to my channel, Rogers Reads. So I've always been a huge fan of Bram Stoker's novel Dracula, so I was incredibly excited when I had the opportunity to read Dracula's Child by J.S. Barnes. So if you've read the original, then you'll be right at home delving into this one, as it kind of picks up where the original Stoker novel leaves off. So the story takes place 10 years after the original novel's events, after Abraham Van Helsing destroyed the evil Count Dracula. So in this novel, we follow Jonathan and Mina Harker, who are still dealing with the trauma and the aftermath of those horrific events and are trying to live their lives as normally as possible. But there are deep emotional scars left over from their encounter with the now deceased Count. So I thought it was interesting how these events changed the characters from the first book. So for instance, Mina and Jonathan are now married, and their marriage is barely held together, with Mina feeling alone and isolated, and Jonathan spending most of his time drunk. So then something happens on the eve of Quincy's 13th birthday, leading to a descent into darkness for everyone involved, as it quickly becomes clear that the evil just may not be gone after all, and that a new evil is on the horizon. So thus begins a fight, not only for young Quincy's soul, and Quincy, by the way, is the son of Jonathan and Mina. So we began a kind of a fight for Quincy's soul, as well as for the lives of everyone around him. So what I really enjoyed about this captivating book is how that it's told in the same epistolary format as the first one, and is written in the form of letters, found documents, newspaper clippings, telegrams, and diary entries. Like the original, the story is told through multiple points of view, allowing us to experience the story from several different angles, viewpoints, and voices. And each character tells his or her side of the story, and in so doing, we get an inside peek of who they really are. So though we might not always like them, and there are indeed several extremely unlikable, if not downright detestable characters, we do understand their motivations and views on the situation around them. So the voice and tone of this book is perfectly matched to the original. In fact, it was so true to the original and so atmospheric that I felt as though I were reading an actual sequel penned by Stoker himself. It had that same suspenseful, slow burn aspect to it, as what was really going on is slowly revealed by the author. Additionally, the characterization was spot on and utterly faithful to the original. It was so compelling to watch the new terror unfold, as many of our favorite characters from the original story, those who fought the Count the first time around, are forced to face an unspeakable horror and make some pretty impossible decisions. There are also plenty of new characters as well, and an original plotline to add to the intrigue of the story. But the secrets here do not come fast and furious, but rather more like a slow drip, much like the original. The suspense here builds extremely slowly. For instance, you know from the get-go that young Quincy is somehow connected to the Count, but we have to wait until the last portion of the book to find out why. So thus the author manages to carefully conceal many hidden motives and secret lives until the startling conclusion. So in this way, the novel does spend a good amount of time world building, and I felt that the author did a really good job with this. It was actually quite fun to discover the various connections between the characters and between the evil that was quickly coming into play in a major and deadly way. The story's ever-darkening atmosphere had an increasing sense of foreboding and menace to it as the events slowly unraveled, revealing quite a twisty, multi-layered, heart-in-your-throat tale. So this really ended up being a terrifying book with torturous tension that winds up like a chain. Barnes really manages to ratchet up the suspense and tension page by nerve-wracking page, and the atmosphere was so evocative that I actually felt colder while reading this book. So I thought this book really stood up well to the original, and what we end up here with then is a gothic story as timeless as the original Dracula. So if the author set out to create a genuine sequel to Dracula, then they certainly succeeded. Perhaps the purists would disagree with me, and of course I'm not claiming to be a Dracula scholar, just a fan. So though this book does stand on its own, I do recommend reading the original first, as there were plenty of references to that book's events, and it will also help the reader to better understand the characters and their motivations. So all in all, I thought this was a phenomenal and unputdownable novel. So Barnes has succeeded in creating here an intense, troubling, and complex story, just as dark and creepy as the classic upon which it's based. And I thought that the blend of human horror and the human heart is expertly balanced and achieved. So yeah, I thought this novel is an outstanding balancing act that walks a thin line between being an ode to the classic horror and a nightmarish modern-day suspense story that stands all on its own. And I gave this one 5 stars. So if you like this video, please click the like button below, as that really helps my channel out. And as always, I thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all of your support, and I will talk to you all in the next video. Roger and out.